Last year was great. This year could be legendary. Welcome to the AIMExpo education stage and to this, our 22nd live MIC symposium and the first live symposium since 2019. And now, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome today's moderator, the owner of Rodgers Performance Consulting, Mark Rodgers.
Wow, good morning, AIM. Mark Rodgers coming from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. So we're going to figure out how to make 2022 legendary. Our first panelist worked his way from service to sales to parts and eventually buying the dealership. Using his hands-on experience and with the help of his 20 group, he grew his RV business from one location to 3, from $5 million in annual revenue to $60 million. Let's suffice it to say that there isn't much he hasn't seen. He sold the business in 2006 and now works as a part-time person for the Spader Business Management Group as a 20-group facilitator and consultant. Please welcome the talented Pat Kennedy. Our next panelist has been improving retailers for over 21 years. Working for Lemco, RPMG, Assurant, and Gart Sutton, this professional is committed to one thing, and that is helping dealers. His clients enthusiastically describe him as highly motivated, engaged, and able to help in any facet of dealership operations. Please welcome the inimitable Garage Composites CEO, Tony Gonzalez. He has self-published over 12 books. He created approaches and techniques helping dealers in all parts of their business. He's been a speaker, a facilitator, and a moderator for literally thousands of power sports events. He is a fourth-generation retailer, and next month will mark his 42nd anniversary helping dealers do business better. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the one and only Gart Sutton. All right, so here we go. And Gart, let's start with you as you get settled in. Let me ask you, from your perspective, what is the single biggest issue facing the power sports industry today?
Welcome, everyone. Good to have you here today. Are you feeling good? Is that the best we can do? Are you feeling good? That's much, much better. Well, let's see. The single most important, I think you're going to hear from all of us after inventory, is people. I don't think I need to spend the time telling you why we're having a people issue out there, because just about everyone is. There's a lot of people looking and searching at maybe a more fulfilling career or future out there. But the big question is when you find them, are you keeping them? Are you grooming them? And are you growing them? I remember working for a dealership. My last dealership that I worked for had a progressive plan for employees. We were kept there. We were happy because we were moving and going places. As a salesperson, I went to the dealer principal and I said, hey, I'd like to be a sales manager. He said, you'll never be a sales manager at my dealership until you've been an F&I manager, and a good one. When I accomplished that, he said, okay, now find your replacement and we've got a spot for you. There was a defined formal way of moving me through the process. So I stayed with the store and moved on up from there.
So you're saying, Gart, that talent is a huge issue. And one of the most important things that dealers can do is that they can chart career paths for their people. And I agree completely. I think that retention is the new acquisition when it comes to talent. We'll certainly be talking about that tomorrow. Hey, Tony, what do you think is the biggest issue facing the power sports business today?
My concern is a couple of things, Mark, and it's first and foremost is what happens with dealers when we rebound, when we don't have a demand model anymore where the supply model switches and we now have inventory flooding our floors and we've become fat and happy with money. And I hope we haven't done bank balance accounting, and we've done stuff like paid off mortgages, we've paid off bills, and we have set ourselves up to go back into a normal model, which is supply and less demand, because there will be a supply of pre-owned material out there. There will be a massive supply of new owned material. And to answer the question direct, in my opinion, the greatest thing that dealers are going to face are needing manufacturers, OEMs, to work with them so that they are not choked with inventory again. And we go back to a model where we all have to, basically tear our clothes off so that we can get these things down the road and make no money on it, because that just wasn't fun. It was working harder and not smarter.
Yeah, right. So let me ask you this though, Tony. So how can a dealer improve that situation? I mean, it might be something that we could influence, right, through advisory groups. What are your other takes? How can we influence OEMs?
Well, the simple answer would be working with people like MIC and the MPDA, these great organizations that are there, and MPDA is in its infancy to get out there and start advocating for the dealer. But at the dealer level, the boots on the ground level, is you just actually have to do things that make sense, that are smart, and you don't have to operate out of fear, and you don't have to be pressured and pushed into taking things that you just know may sit on your shelf and collect dust. And so I think it not only comes from the people surrounding you, it also comes from boots on the ground, making smart decisions as dealers and doing what's right for your bottom profitability and your family and your business.
Well, I got to tell you, I really like what you've said about not operating out of fear, because I just think that sometimes we do that, and it's not a great place. Pat, let me ask you, what's the single biggest issue facing the power sports industry today?
Good morning. Thanks, everybody. First, I'd like to agree with both the comments I just heard. I think in the long-term throw, my experience, the deployment of your people is going to be the number one differentiator between the most profitable dealers and the average, and the dealers that don't make it over the long term. But I do want to drop back into the obvious question of inventory, both from just the historical perspective. None of us, these guys probably know, I don't certainly know when this demand abundance and supply lack will end, but somehow or another, those two things always seem to happen together, where there's a slacking in consumer demand just about the same time that there's a maximum capacity of production. And all of a sudden, this thing happens very quickly. So we're cranking along in this 18-month, 2-year just cycle. And all of a sudden, before anybody knows it, everything's softened and you're stuck with a bunch of product that you really wish you didn't have because you've been buying everything, get your hands on it. So the question for me is, when you're out there in your market, what are your tentacles like? How are you keeping your feel for what's happening? Because that shift is going to come. We all know it. I don't know when. It doesn't seem like this year, but maybe next year. Who knows? But we all know that there is a cycling of these two things, and it happens relatively quickly. The other thing I think about for power sports, more than the other industries that we're in, is the old, if you'll say, model of loading up dealers, providing incentive programs to get dealers to stock them deep for the manufacturer's convenience. Wasn't that great for manufacturers in the sense that they had to come up with a lot of interest programs and stuff like that. And it wasn't that great for dealers, obviously, because if you guessed wrong, you were really wrong. So I wonder, and these guys probably have a lot of opinions on that, I wonder if this historical power sports, like 2 turns a year inventory model, maybe it doesn't come back. Maybe the manufacturers are seeing the profitability that they're reaping right now, and we start having to live with a model of 3 or 4 turns a year, which I think creates a different level of pressure on us in terms of the way we order, the way we sell, the way we train our salespeople to take advantage of every lead rather than wait for something else, or I've got 30 of them in a crate in the back. So I think that inventory obviously is the number one constraint for dealers, but I think it also has a bit of a long-term throw maybe for the industry and what happens and with new manufacturers and new capacity coming online. There could be a lot of changes in what we see as kind of the historical power sports model.
Well, it's going to be interesting. And like you say, dealers will have to keep their tentacles out there so they can anticipate change and maybe catch that wave before it happens. All right, excellent. Let's go to our crowd and let's go to our mentee survey. So for the people in the audience, what do you think is the biggest issue facing power sports dealers right now? So we'll give you, and we've limited you to one word. You have to describe it in one word. So this is an exercise in concision. And you guys are going to have to let me know when there's something up on the screen because I can't see a thing.
Thank you, Mark. Yes, the poll's up on the screen. We're already getting some answers coming in. We invite you to pull out your cell phones. Go ahead and enter the code on menti.com and answer the question. Thank you so much. So Mark, right now we're seeing supply, inventory, sales margin. We're also seeing inflation, experience, sell, regulation in different dealers, entry into the market, experience, rumble on, decline, oil price.
Oh, wow, there you go. That's the spectrum of things happening out there. Oil prices, I'm shocked to see that. Is that is an electrification person in the room? Is that what we're talking about? Pat, do you see anything out there that's interesting that you can comment on?
Yeah, I'll jump in on one thing that picking up on what Gart said about executing with your people. I see sales margin sort of sticking in there as an issue, and selling margins are up across the board. But when I look at our numbers, at least, I see a fairly narrow band of parts and accessories margins in the power sports industry, and then front end selling margins, and even F&I. You know, while of course there's outliers on both sides, even F&I, there's some consistency there. But the difference in net profit between dealers with very similar sales margins is huge and dramatic. So it's about, you know, productivity and efficiency and executing with your staff. And so when I see that sales margin, I think it's very interesting, and I'm sure that you guys have the same experience. If you look in a 20 group, there could be dealers with very similar selling margins, but very different bottom lines. And that's all about execution usually and deployment of your staff.
Okay, so Pat, give us a tactic or two that the higher net profit dealers are doing with their deployment of their people that the others aren't.
I mean, on a really macro level, one of the issues is structural. So if you look at your business and look at the gross margin per employee, that's a tell both about efficiency, but also about the number of people you have in non-productive positions or management positions. And if your gross margin per employee is, you know, below the average in your 20 club or your 20 group, or below some of the industry average for the product mix you sell, it's going to be really hard to generate the net profit at the higher echelon of dealers. So sometimes when business is really good, we start adding people without really thinking through how their numbers fit into the business. And I think a lot of us are in that spot. Man, I need the phones answered. I need someone else to answer to help the customer at the counter and all that. So we start adding people. Next thing you know, you've gone from 30 employees to 40, and your net profit margins have suddenly started to slip because your gross margin per employee drops. And you know, and I think one of the things that top tier dealers are always doing is kind of recasting their business and looking at it and making sure that structurally they're in the right place.
Gart, what's your take on that?
How many dealers out in the audience have been in business for over 30 years? Raise your hand, please. Okay, so we know the supply issue that we've got. It will come, it will go. We went through in the 80s, didn't we? Where we, you know, had too much. We had 4 different years of non-currents out there. And I look down at this list that you as an audience have provided, and inflation, what can we do about that? So I looked at one item that really caught my eye, and Mark, can I share with them what that item is?
Please.
Experience. How many in this audience has been to Trader Joe's? Raise your hand. Okay. How'd you find the employees at Trader Joe's? Were they happy? Well, I can tell you firsthand, I have a 20-year-old son that started at Trader Joe's at age 16. He had a part-time job and they liked him enough, felt that he was engaging enough to the customer that he was allowed to bring in some of his friends, and they hired several of his friends. I said, do they actually let you work together? He said, absolutely. We want an experience for the employees as much as for the customer. Can I have an amen here?
Amen.
So the big question is experience, because a lot of these things will take care of itself, or we'll work through them, or time will tell. But if we can create a culture and environment where people really want to go to work. Now, my son was in high school. He could hardly wait to go to work. It was his happy spot, his happy place. Not just because he got $15 an hour, then went to $24 an hour, but that might be a takeaway too. I'm not suggesting that you have to go to that degree, but with that happy face out there, a happy environment, a great culture, he was able to bring in and attract other people into that store, and he was paid well. How long do you think he lasted at there? And how long was he able to bank as a young person there? So I guess one of the big takeaways here is go back and examine that environment. Do people really want to go to work every morning? I've gone to factories all around the world, and you watch when that whistle blows, people coming out, they can't get to their car fast enough. Am I right? How are they leaving your store each day? Are they happy? Are they fulfilled? Is there a career path? Do they have good mentors? And if you're doing that, you're doing a lot of things right, and you will endure for years to come. As Tony had mentioned earlier, that this will come and this will go. Are you ready?
Yeah, great. Thanks, Gart. I appreciate that. Tony, take a look at that word cloud and pick something out that you'd like to comment on.
You want me to comment on what Pat said, or you want me to look at something different on there?
Something different from the word cloud, please.
So the ones that stuck out to me is dealers have been talking now for, since around COVID. Obviously, there's been a tectonic shift in employees that either do or do not want to come to work. And for the most part, you're hearing everybody, whether, I live in a small ski resort town and restaurants are closed a whole lot more than they're open because of staffing issues. And so I see on here, manpower, staffing, employees, retention. That has been a topic at hand in our 20 clubs now, growing probably for the past 10 years. It got worse in 5 years, and then COVID most certainly put that on the radar, that it is really hard to find people to take on these positions. And I would personally say that it's something that you want to look at. Gart touches on experience. We talked about, gross margin per employee, but at the end of the day, are you actually providing a profession, or are you continuing to provide a job for the summer? Because typically what we're doing is we're filling positions at 98 degrees. If they can get here to my dealership and they can do it sober in a shirt that is semi-wrinkled, we'll take those employees.
Right.
And I think you really need to stop doing that, and you need to look into a career path. And I would ask how many of you actually have job descriptions that show, if you're a good salesperson, we're going to take you from an associate salesperson, or in the Harley world, a fit specialist, and we're going to turn you into a ride or an assistant sales manager. And you can work your way to a sales manager or a service manager in this manner, or you're going to go from a level D technician to a C by attaining all of these certifications. We'll put you through school here. So I think we have to be more career focused, and we also have to be in tuned. And if you've listened to our podcast, you will hear me hammering on the millennial generation all the time. And it's more joking than anything. But there's a counter to that, and is that most people that own, the demographics of owners and even some of the general managers out there are either Gen Xers like me, baby boomers, and I don't want to be presumptuous like a lot of the other room in here. And it's a simple system of understanding who they are. And so when I talk about what you're looking for in an employee, you have to realize now, and again, if you look at my generation, Generation X, and you talk to my grandfather, who was part of the greatest generation and fought in World War II, he'd look at my generation and say, you kids are all jacked up, man. You're a bunch of whiners, and you're this and you're that. And it's a matter of understanding. And so where am I going with this is, millennials and Gen Zs don't like to work in the manner in which we have been trained to work. And so I'm not telling you to have to pay them more, or, you have to give them every Saturday off, but There's things like educational components. There, you know, if you look at any of these places, Starbucks, Taco Bell, what they're doing, they're incentivizing millennials in different ways. Put it in your pay plan that you already have and break it out to entice people into a career that gives them some of the things that they need. So that would be my opinion on the staffing portion.
Yeah, something's got to change. All right. Well, staffing really is it. And Gart, you know, I know one of your passions and one of your key points of interest is the real need for talent in the service department. Can we talk more about just the absolute dire need for technicians?
You're asking me, Mark?
I am.
Well, there's another grow your own, is it not? How many of you have a surplus of technicians? None. How many could use 1, 2, or more, maybe 5 more? Raise your hand. Absolutely. One thing I'd like to appeal to on this platform right now, and I hope that every OEM will see this, is we need help. We need their support in cultivating and finding people and bringing them along and supporting us to hand to somebody who's not greener than green. Am I right? Can I have a hear here? That's all I get. Can I have a hear here?
Hear, hear.
Yes, OEMs, we need your help. Please spend some of that money on some of our bringing and cultivating and finding these technicians. We'll take it from there. We'll put a career path together we'll PDI them and make them and move them up to the B and the A's. But give us something to work with. We don't have time to go to MMI and try the search and trial and error. We need something that's at least to an acceptable entry level for us to work with, because we're busy people, are we not? Right, Bob? Oh, by the way, can I interject? The service department, obviously, and I know everybody knows this, is the second showroom floor. Do we have the people representing that and creating the experience as that customer walks through that door of that service department and feeling comfortable about letting their machine and leaving that machine in the hands there?
There you have it. Well, you know, and maybe this leads us on to a topic that I know Tony's passionate about, and that is, you know, so shifting gears just slightly, Tony, I know you're really interested in fixed operations as real profit centers. So can we talk more about that?
Yeah, I mean, our metrics are showing, and you know, my presentation is geared tomorrow to show a bunch of metrics that have not kept up with the sales department. Everybody in here knows that it was a freaky world the past 18 months. We had customers that would come in and ask for a red motorcycle. And if you didn't have that, they'd say, well, can I have that blue side by side? And if you didn't have that, well, do you have a watercraft? And if you don't have that, they ended up leaving with snowmobiles. I mean, I really do have stories from dealers that people were coming in a mood to buy. And we didn't really have to do much of anything to get units out the door. The worst thing that was happening is we couldn't find anything. But scary enough, a couple of things have happened. Our parts and accessories department has gone the opposite way. And tomorrow I'll show you guys that it's not because of supply chain constrictions, because we actually have the supply and we have a tremendous amount more of obsolescent inventory that has seen a birthday that we now have in the warehouse or in the back of the shop. It's that our parts and accessories department are not acting customer centric. It's not somewhere where you would go and get a Nordstrom's or a Neiman Marcus experience. It's somebody standing behind a counter. And if there's parts people out there, I'm not hammering on you right now. I'm just saying, truth of the matter is we need an experience where I have 3 or 4 people on the floor meeting me when I get into that department. I need people helping me try on the stuff that goes on my body, showing me what it looks like when I put it onto a unit. And we just don't have that kind of experience in the parts department. And another angle I want to give you that, you know, Gart was talking about the technician side of life. And, you know, I agree that if you find a good technician that is going to be loyal to you, pay them well, because they're making a lot of money today and they can go work in many other industries doing wrench turning. So that's the first thing. But something profound that we found in our numbers is there's over a national average $330,000 of lost labor in the service department in 2021. So it's not necessarily that we need more technicians. It's that we need more nurses and people to check us in. It's that we need better service riders. We need a better service manager. We need somebody that concierge that customer and makes all those extra text messages and emails and points of contact, because that's the biggest problem. Is our service department is really good at taking something in. Let me say C- at taking some stuff in. They're decent about taking stuff in. They're good about getting it fixed, but we're terrible at keeping up. We're terrible at upselling while it's on the stand, getting 3 things that should be there in the service department. So there is so much money to the tune of $300,000 that was left on the table in 2021. That's just melted ice cream on the ground that we could be capturing. So it's not just sales, it's fixed operations that could be making us a lot of money.
Mark, may I make an injection?
Sure.
Tony is big about the numbers, and if you're not at 70% margin in your service department, you're not where you need to be. And the 30% that's left is for technicians. It includes their compensation, excluding benefits. Only theirs, not the foreman, not the manager, only those that turn a wrench there. Do you know where you stand there? Because that metric is incredibly important. And when was the last time you moved your billable rate up? When was that? That's not the end all and solve all, but are you keeping up with that? Because that's a significant input to money into that service department.
Excellent. I tell you what, Gart, let's ask them. Lee, I want you to put up question number 3. Question number 3 for the Mentee survey. Let's ask our participants right now. How would you currently rate the profitability of your service department? How would you currently rate it? Is it 1, out of sight, 2, meh, or 5, it's call 911?
All right, Mark, the survey is up. We're getting some answers already. Unfortunately, the meh column is the highest.
Oh my. All right, fair enough. So Pat, then let's come back to you now, talking about fixed operations. So what else can you augment or amplify what Tony and Gart were speaking of when we were talking about fixed ops? How can you dramatically improve your situation with those?
Well, these guys are the internal experts, obviously. But I think there's a cultural bias, because generally speaking, general managers and owners, or not generally, but frequently come from the sales side of the business. So their view of fixed ops is, oh God, I have to go back out there again.
Yeah.
It's not front and center, and it's not core what they grew up doing. It's not what it initially excites them. When they learn, I think that the long-term elite profitable dealerships are the ones that have mastered fixed operations and great service departments. I think some excitement builds in it, but I believe there's just a built-in bias towards sales departments, because so many owners and general managers come from the sales side of the business. And that's super unfortunate, because ultimately fixed ops is what's going to carry the day in times of sales crisis, which come, right, inevitably. And in terms of customer satisfaction, and in terms of dealing with the new generation of buyers, you mentioned employees, Tony, but millennials aren't going to take, I'm waiting for parts for 3 weeks or a month or 2 months, or I forgot, or we broke it, or all that stuff. None of that worked with maybe, my generation and previous generation is going to be effective anymore. So in addition to fixed operations profitability, I think it's going to be just a vital piece of answering the question that the customer has: will I come back to this place?
Yeah.
And without it, they're not.
Yeah. So fixed ops will help smooth, all of the peaks and valleys in the business process. Okay, cool. Well, let's transition to this then, since we're talking about owners. If we could, what is one key characteristic that you have observed of all successful owners? What is one key characteristic of all successful owners? And Gart, let's start with you.
Gee, there's Sewell Cadillac in Texas. When I started my career, before I got into power sports, I had an appointment, was sent down by the motor company, and they had an appointment, and he said, "Oh, you just missed him. He's across the street in our service." I ran over there, and I went over. He's back over in the used. I ran over there. I was running everywhere, and here is a man probably approaching 80, if not beyond, that's everywhere. And I was thinking back as I'm looking at your MSF program again and saying hello to old friends there. Back in the day when we first learned how to ride motorcycles, it was SIPT. Does anybody remember what SIPT means? Scan, identify, predict, decide, and execute. What a great model for management to walk through that dealership as a dealer and owner and scan and identify areas. Are there oil cans back in that service department? What does the sales manager's desk look like? Is it clean? Is it ready for a deal? When you identify these things, predict the results of the problem that you're seeing. And then you decide how you're going to execute that. Now, when I was a little kid, my dad was a Ford dealer, and I said, hey, that service department sink over there is filthy. And I was probably 6 years old. And he said, when you're a dealer someday, you don't go to that man and tell him to clean that. You go to the manager, and the manager will handle that for you. Getting things done through people. A 6-year-old was getting his first lesson from his dad. Are you doing that? Are you walking, identifying, predicting, and most important, are you executing?
Thank you. That was terrific, Gart. A lot of fun. Tony, how about for you? What's one key characteristic of all successful owners?
I would say their financial acumen, their business acumen is on point. There's a big difference between, I mentioned before, owners that understand bank balance accounting. They look in their bank account and think, man, I am rich. And then it's a whole different level to really understand your P&L, your balance sheet, and exactly if you're generating wealth. They really understand the numbers that are behind their business. They stay out of the middle of sales of major units too. That's another thing, because they don't go out of business because we don't want owners selling on the front end. That was a joke. And then I guess the only other thing is to me, it's the culture that they set. And most of the owners that I see that are just timeless are the ones that are doing this 30, 40 years. They're still coming to peer advisory groups, and they're bringing people, and they're actually passing on all the lessons that they have learned to a newer generation. You know, if they can come and be probably one of the smartest people in the room, yet they take away a page of notes, they have succeeded. It's those kind of people that are looking to continue their growth.
Yeah, that's good stuff. Hang on a second. Let me just jot this down. Yeah, the old joke is, how do you improve your front end margin? Get the owner out of the deal, Yeah, absolutely. So, Pat, what's one key characteristic that you have seen successful owners have or portray?
If I had to boil it down to one, I think the discipline to execute on strategies that you set is critical, and rather than be jumping on the flavor of the month, if you've decided upon your mission, vision, values of your business, and you've chosen your lane of product types and categories, and determined what your basic focus is, single point, multi-points, however that goes, the discipline to do that and to keep following up on it, and adapt where needed, but not get sidetracked into everything that comes along, I think is a big differentiator between long and short-term success. If you've got to kind of stand for something in terms of the values of the business, in terms of the products and services you offer, and the way you're going to do it, the way you're going to treat your employees, and then just execute on that. And I think dealers, we always want the next great thing, and it can lead us astray if we're not careful and get distracted into all kinds of stuff that aren't part of our core business. And staying focused on the core strategies is a great skill and a great mindset of owners.
Yeah, focused and intentional effort. And sometimes, initiatives need some time to develop, don't they? All right, excellent. Well, I appreciate that. Here's a flip side. Speaking of looking at bank statements and speaking of owners, what's a sign that an owner should sell? What's a sign that an owner should, maybe think about selling this place?
When the market's hot and they get a lot for their business.
Okay, so one is when the market's hot. Good. Give me another.
I think it's when you roll out of bed and you're no longer just excited to go do it. I think because if I'm getting a little bored and tired and I want to go play golf, Tony's my dealership next door, and he's getting up at 6 a.m. doing push-ups in business, ready to come attract my best employees, take my best products, and steal my loyal customers because his head's in the game. And I think once you're drifting away, I think you need to start thinking of your success and strategy, in my mind.
Yeah. Is this what happened to you, Pat, when you sold your dealerships?
As a matter of fact, yes.
Excellent. Thank you for sharing that. Gart, what's your perspective? What's an indicator that somebody says, well, maybe we should sell this thing?
Signs that they should sell is they're done and their attitudes are no longer where they should be. Every day when you ride at your store, either ride or drive up, your employees look at your face to see what kind of day they're going to have. Right, Tony? Right, Pat? You drive it. You set the tone. When you can't smile and you can't make this fun and this is a drudgery and you start hating employees, might be a good time to sell, right? Or succeed, one of the two. You've got sons, daughters that are interested in the business. Give them more of the rein right there. Step aside. Nothing's worse than someone that is representing the dealership and setting the example that doesn't have the example that should be set. Can I have a hear?
Fair enough. All right. Thank you. Okay. So here we go. So let's click gears now and let's go digital. Tony, let's talk about digital dealerships. Let's talk about digital retailing, and give me just a perspective of what you think about the digital retailing future for our dealerships.
Well, I think honestly, it's in its infancy here in the power sports industry. We're starting to see some vendors out there that are talking about digital, but when you look at omni-channel and what's going on, we're, as usual, right? We're behind the auto industry in what's going on. In 2021, we broke out in our composite, which for anybody that knows what we do, everything for us was what we call the traffic log, the in-store experience. What are your salespeople doing inside the store? And what we came to find was 90% of sales of power sports equipment start online. So that, what's the first thing that came to my mind when I heard that statistic? Wasn't like, wow, that's big. It was, who's the 10% that's not going?
Yeah, right.
To start their experience, right? We also found out that 81 to 83% are finishing their sales within a dealership. Okay, so that should tell you right there, they're getting their due diligence done online, whether it's on their phone, their computer, or their tablet. So we instituted what we call a digital traffic log because, quite frankly, we feel that it is way more important to be measuring your digital front door than the actual door swing. Now, you didn't hear me say that it doesn't matter about the experience that you bring in your store. That is paramount, how you treat people in your store. But I really want you to understand, it is akin to letting somebody walk through your dealership door and walk around your sales floor for 25 minutes and not talk to them and let them leave. That is akin to a digital lead that you are getting via email, via OEM push, via text message through Connect, something like that. And the fact of the matter is when we instituted this digital traffic log, we had 75, 80% of our dealers at our meetings raise their hand and go, hey man, where do you expect me to get this information? And in and of itself, that told me everything that I needed, which was, if you don't know where to find the information, you can't possibly be measuring your digital front door, and you cannot be white gloving that customer from the time that they give you that digital lead to the time, and they need to be handled. Aaron Barney says, handle touch points, white glove people until they walk through your front door. So when we're talking about the digital space, people, this isn't going away. I mean, we're not riding. Nobody ever decided to go back to riding horses and buggies. There's a few out there, but nobody decided to go back to a rotary phone. Digital presence in these dealerships is only going to exponentially get faster, and you are missing the wave if you are not hyper focused on your digital front door.
Yeah, right. Pat, what's your take on the digital future?
I would say I have no idea where it's going, but I totally agree with Tony that it's not going away. And the successful clients that I work with are as serious about their website and the metrics of contacting customers online as they are about what happens inside the store. Maybe even more serious. And they track it and follow it. And the salespeople that don't respond appropriately and in time don't get the leads. And it's just, absolutely critical that it becomes one other measurement, not just a point, but a whole section of things that you're measuring inside the store. And I have the same experience in a 20 group where we're trying to collect data, and particularly some of the older dealers that have been around a long time, that we don't want to believe it's happening. We don't want to believe that this is the world that we're in. But man, if it's Facebook, if it's Instagram, if it's income, if it's web traffic, if it's new leads, all that stuff, it all matters. And the dealers that are winning in that game are the ones that are really, really serious about it. And I just quickly talk about a specific client who many of his competitors think, well, he's just an internet sleaze, he's just giving stuff away online. But I tell you, I go to their dealership and you've never seen such a well-honed operation. The customers are contacted up until like 11 o'clock at night within 5 minutes of being on the website. I mean, it's just on and on. They follow the metrics, setting appointments, getting them into the store, making it happen. The real success is not going to be accidental. It's not just about having the low price. It's about all those contact points, all those skills about setting appointments and getting the people to the dealership or getting the transaction complete online if that's your model. It's not accidental, and it's not just about price. It's about executing against a game plan that's got real metrics and real measuring points.
Yeah, I really believe it's the future. As a matter of fact, when you think about touch points, we've been partnering with DLP and doing some A/B testing and a bunch of research and plotting out customer journeys. What is the sequence from, their clicking on your website to their shopping by payment to their showing up into your dealership. I think it's a fascinating component of the business. Gart, what's your take on customer experience in the digital world?
Digital. We're not Tesla. Even though the automobile industry is teaching the consumer to buy online, that's not who we are in the power sport industry. People want to see what they're going to play with. We need to accessorize it. We have apparel that's important. And the apparel, as you're going to see from the exhibitors out here, have been upgraded again and again. They're going to see the newest, greatest. They're going to bring the family. You've seen it. We're not so entrenched in the digital that I can pick up and buy everything I ever want. You can try that, but we need some expertise. I'm down at Sloan's in Murfreesboro, Tennessee, and Kelly in the parts department. I'm saying I need a new rain suit. She says, "Do you know what you want?" I said, "No, exactly what I went online." Well, I told her, and she said, "Would you consider having me tell you a little bit about maybe you might want something else? You want black because you want to look good. Don't you want to be seen in the rain? When you go from Southern California to Denver and it's raining, do you not want to be seen?" I say, "Absolutely, Kelly, I do. Tell me more." She says, "Well, you're from Southern California. The one you picked out is way too warm for you. You can layer up under this." Now here's Kelly showing me how to buy a rain suit. I can't get that digitally. Sure, I could go on the talk little feature on that, but I want to meet her. I want to talk to her. I want to get excited about my trip. I want her to ask, "Where are you going next?" "Oh, you're going to the Dragon." "Oh, cool. You're up to the Snake." "Oh, that's fantastic. Route 66. I can't get that digital in the same way. So how do you get them off of digital? You start talking about their pre-owned. Say, "Listen, we make some of our better deals, or if you have something in trade. And I wish we could appraise this digitally over the phone. However, I need you to bring that in right away. We've got customers just hounding us for what you've got." Now I get them off of that and get into the customer experience of coming in. Where do you ride? Who do you ride with? And you build this friendship for life. Am I right? So I'm not playing down digital. It is, we have to have people capable of it. We have business development centers in my dealer 20 group. that people thrive on and swear by because the measurements are phenomenal there. And maybe that's a way for you to go. But let's not forget, it's getting them into our store. That's essential.
Yeah, that's key. You know, we'll never, and we don't want to lose the interpersonal stuff. I mean, it's the real deal happens IRL, as the kids say today. But boy, it sure does start digitally. Let's talk about a couple of other things right now. So let's talk about measuring F&I performance. So, Gart, just quickly, do you see F&I PPVR as the ultimate F&I metric?
Mark, do I really want to talk about F&I?
Well, sure.
Okay, well, I have to stand up for this one because it's a favorite subject of mine. When you look at the metrics, per vehicle sold is one important metric. You should be at least 500-600, and over here, you folks should be at 1,000 plus and 1,200, which I know you are right now, right, Sherry? 1,200, a little more than that. If you're not there and you measure that, you take and divide out by the number of units and find out per vehicle sold, then you need to get there. But that's not enough. You got to look at the per vehicle finance too. What are you doing with the ones you have financing? Now, I don't know if you two agree with me, but I don't like a big gap. I like a little tighter. Because sure, you're a hero when you convert them to financing. You sell the extended service, you sell the gap, you sell the prepaid maintenance. Okay, you get all that. Well, fantastic. But what are you doing to convert people? Do you have a word track for that? Do you have a solution? Do you have a process? Do you have a method for doing that? The other thing we look at is that, are you giving away your extended service contracts? If you pay your F&I manager off of a percentage or performance, but you don't look at the profitability, they're going to give away. And then where are you in that extended service contract? You know, what's for not there? You went through a lot of motion there that they should be holding their own in there because that rightfully is your money. Did I cover that the way you want, Mark?
So other than that, you don't feel strongly about it?
Well, don't get me started on cash conversions because that's...
Hey, Tony, let me ask you, in terms of F&I, do you have any favorite metrics?
Yeah, you know, Gart mentioned the per vehicle finance and per unit sold. Those are super important. A couple more things that I think are super important to look at is penetration mix. So it is Gart's saying, you know, not only are you giving away the extended service, which is absolutely the wrong thing to do, but is that the only thing that you're selling because it's super easy to sell because it's coming from a manufacturer and you can get that finance pretty simply into a deal. So I'm looking at your product mix. Are you getting into the tire and wheel? Are you getting into gap? I always like to say that, you know, there's some sales managers, some owners, and even some finance people that think that this is snake oil, or that, you know, I just don't want to sell a customer something like that because they're not going to use it or they may not need it. And I always tell them, don't sell products with your own wallet, because I look at F&I products as entitlements. I'm entitled after I buy a $30,000, $40,000, $45,000 thing. I'm entitled to see if I can get extended service. I'm entitled to see if I can get a priority maintenance, a gap contract to cover me because I use my stuff. So I think it's important that you're penetrating into your menu if you're selling with a menu. And then the other thing that is super important with regards to F&I is chargebacks. And chargeback numbers are super important to look at because you can do a really good job of selling stuff very fast and making people sign documents. But if your chargebacks are telling you that people are coming back and canceling this stuff after they go away and really read the fine print, I don't think you're educating the customer, and then it doesn't become an entitlement. It becomes that I'm just signing hard because there's 3 copies. So.
Yeah. Excellent. Thank you. So, Pat, tell us about the RV business. What can the power sports business learn from RV financing?
Be careful. No, actually, I think that in a funny way, power sports dealers have dealt in a low front end margin environment for a lot longer time than RV dealers have, and so power sports dealers have had to really cut their teeth on F&I kind of ahead of RV dealers. And For decades, RV dealers had strong margins, and F&I was just sort of a nice to have. And it's only in the past 10 or 15 years, and then led by the roll-ups that are very common in the RV business now, the razor thin margins that they had to deal with, that F&I became just a non-negotiable data point for dealers' net profit strategies. And I'd agree with the comments I heard here that it's not just about capturing the financing, which in the RV business, you're talking about $100,000 to $200,000 piece of equipment. It doesn't take the greatest salesman in the world to tack on a $5,000 or $10,000 add-on on it, because it's almost immaterial in terms of the monthly payment. When you draw that back down to power sports, it's a lot less, of course, but F&I sales is a function of good sales management, but then quality sales, presentation, objection handling skills in the F&I office. And that should happen with a cash deal and a finance deal. And I think sometimes we're not as precise on what the outcome goals and the closing goals by product type, as Tony was mentioning, for F&I sales, as we should be. I think we just got to have it all lined out in terms of monthly goals and hold people accountable for it. And that's the RV industry is learning that now, because some of the really good F&I focused businesses, just don't accept lackluster appointment. It's just the same way you wouldn't, let a B or C tech have all of the great jobs in the shop. You just wouldn't let a lackluster or poor performing F&I manager have, if you have two, you're not going to let that person have half your customers. And you've got to have top quality people with top quality skills and training in that office.
Yeah, it's got to work. All right, thank you. Now, so let's transition to this. Bob Key, the NPDA Education Director, has said to me that one of the most important developmental experiences that he ever had as a dealer was his participation in a 20 group. So, Tony, let me ask you, and I know you know Bob, why do you think that 20 club participation is such a powerful developmental experience for dealers?
It is my opinion that if you talk to the three of us on this stage, along with some others that are in this industry, less than 10% of the power sports industry plays in a peer advisor group, a 20 club, a 20 group, whatever you want to call it. To be on an island and try and run your business on your own without the help of people that are actually battle tested is the height of folly. So first and foremost, I don't provide information to dealers because I'm super duper smart. It's actually the dealers that I put together into a room, be it 15, 18, 20 dealers that get to sit in a room, and they get to give you all their secrets, their cheats. They show you their cards. They give you their marketing. They tell you how to hold the line, how to get more money for units, how to hire. To me, it's so much more enriching, because I had a dealer tell me one time, listen, in hard times, I can't go home to my wife and tell her, I don't know how I'm going to make payroll, because my wife will think, oh my God, they're going out of business and I'm going to lose everything that we own. He goes, conversely, I can't go to the store and tell my staff, I don't know how I'm going to make payroll, because they're going to start looking for a job and think we're going out of business. He goes, the one place I can come 3 times a year for 2 to 3 days is I can come here to my therapy and I can tell Marshall, I don't know how I'm going to make payroll and I don't think I'm going out of business, but what should I do? And Glow might tell me, well, you know what? I have a plan. Here's what you can do. I secured a loan, or I did this, or you can cut back on that. Whatever it might be, it is a place for dealers to go ahead and purge everything that they need to purge, and conversely, learn all the good lessons. And it's one of my favorite things to see a new person that is in the industry that doesn't really know what they were doing. They may have been super successful in the banking world or wherever it is that they were before, and they came into power sports because they're an enthusiast. And it's great to have them in the room and look around and go, I have no clue what I'm doing. And I can tell them, don't worry, this whole group will figure it out for you. They'll make you profitable. Just do me a favor and make sure you get to know your board of directors here. So I guess the short skinny of it is that to be on an island is just, it's scary to me. Why not join any 20 club? And listen, of course, would I want you to join ours? For sure. But if you're in anybody's 20 club and there's plenty of other providers out there, you're already way ahead of the curve by far.
Well, it's really about community, isn't it? So I really like what you've mentioned there. Pat, how about for you? I mean, you're a guy who's spent his entire career involved with 20 clubs. Why do you see the 20 club experience as such a powerful developmental experience for dealers?
Well, first of all, I'll second that almost social aspect that Tony mentioned. You know, there's the three legs of the stool in terms of 20 group. One is the facilitation, which is the least important. The second is the relationship you form with the other dealers in the group, which is really, really vital. And then the third piece is that financial composite and benchmarking. And Tony covered the first couple really well. And I just think about the benchmarking part. If you ask someone, like Tony said, who's in the island, how's business? They say, it's pretty good. And then my question is, compared to what? Compared to last year, compared to 2019, compared to your budget? I mean, that tells you something about it. But when you can say business is pretty good compared to the top 10 or 15% of dealers in my 20 group or in the industry, now you're talking. You know, now you're seeing what's possible, not just what you've done, but what's possible out there in the broader industry. And I'll reflect on my experience and what I've seen in 20 groups. Nothing is better for me in facilitating a 20 group than to see someone join who's in one of the bottom tiers of several categories. In their first few meetings, they're going, you know, you can't do that. That doesn't happen. Not in my market. You guys are lucky.
You don't know my customers.
There's a million excuses, different customers. It's that's the South. I'm in the West. And then to watch those dealers climb up the ranks and just see that it's possible, learn from the other dealers. And next thing you know, 2 or 3 years later, they're in the top tier, and that's how 20 group works. And it is transformational, for businesses just to see what's possible out there, get out of your own mindset of the limitations and see other dealers that are out there doing it. It just that knowledge that it's possible is enough to really get the wheels turning.
Yeah, and I love that term, transformational. That's great. Gart, would you like to comment?
20 clubs. Wow. How many are in one or have been in one? Raise your hand. Wave it if you're enthusiastic about that, okay? How many aren't quite clear what a 20 club is? Raise your hand. No shame here, okay? It's supposedly up to 20 dealers. Now, we have a Best Operators Club that has 21 dealers. They represent 27 stores. And so that's a little larger group than normal. But the first thing I would say to you is 20 clubs are not for everyone. If you're not willing or interested in getting good data, then we don't want you. Because data can drive and motivate you. When you have in your data 100% productivity in the service department, that's impossible. You should be 85%, and you should know that. But you should also know efficiency could be well over 100% there. And how do you learn that? Good data, input it. Garbage in, garbage out. You don't have good data, you're not willing to make that commitment, and sometimes it takes years to really, right, Bob? It takes years to get up there where you should be on there. If you're not willing to submit it on time each month, and now it's all automatic anyway, automatic upload, no matter what your DMS is. If you're not willing to come to 3 meetings a year and interact, if you're only going to come to be a sponge and you're not there to give, we don't want you. We want to hear and learn from you. And that doesn't mean you have to be a veteran of our industry. There's so much to learn from an RV dealer or an automotive dealer, something that has those dealerships as well as power sports. But you better be able to give. We have someone in our group called Charlie Jensen from Good Times. He does for us every single month a forecast, industry forecast. We send it out with our emails to all the dealers. We've had situations in the past over my 34 years this group has been together, 34 years this group's been together, where someone got cancer and they all rallied as members to go down and take turns to run that store, work that service department, handle the books, do something until this person, which fortunately had a full recovery. That's what a 20 group is about. You're a family, you grow together, you know each other, you care about each other, and you tell the truth amongst each other about what it's like and what you need, and they'll help, and they'll be great. And when you find that, it's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. So aspire towards that. And for those of you that have no succession plan, you want to dress that bride. You want to get your dealership numbers before somebody sophisticated comes along that wants to buy your dealership. But you better be contributing, because we don't just want you to have one objective in our group.
Excellent. And touching story about that. That's really great, the way people came together. So, we come back to community. Pat, let me ask you this. What's the most surprising thing you've ever encountered in your career?
I think an aha moment that I keep having over and over again is that culture wins every time in businesses. And we always look at it as soft and not important, but let me ask a different question. How many of you have ever walked into a business of any kind and instinctively known that something's wrong? The employees are not happy. They're not paying attention to you. This is not going to be a great customer service experience, right? Right? As a customer, you know it in 5 seconds, right? And some news, all the employees know it. The owners know it. Everybody knows it, that this place has got a problem. And that's a corrosive culture has a hard time producing even at the average level. And I, particularly when I was really young, I thought everything was all about the numbers and about just pushing people beyond it. At the end of the day, though, the dealerships that have great internal culture, where, as Gart mentioned, where the employees want to come to work, where there's a path forward, where the customers walk in and there's a vibe, there's a sense, there's a feeling about it. Those are the people, those are the businesses that have lasting power in any industry. But we get so tied up in all kinds of other stuff, we forget that at the end of the day, our people aren't there for the pay, really. They're not there because they're super excited about twisting a wrench at your place, really. They're there because they like it. They like the culture, the feel, and your customers are there for the same reason. And a lot of it, in my mind, comes back to, does the customer leave thinking, I'll be back? And if you've got a dysfunctional culture, they're not thinking that. They're thinking, I'm going to take the information I just learned and go online and find it cheaper. That's what's happening. So I guess it caught me off guard there, but I think culture wins is an aha lesson I keep learning over and over again.
Yeah, and I really appreciate those insights. Peter Drucker had this famous line. He had this great line. Peter Drucker, if you don't know who Peter Drucker was, he is the grandfather of modern management. And his statement was that culture eats process. I don't care what your 7 steps are. It's the culture of your dealership, which is really going to rule the day. It's so funny. I was thinking about culture this morning when I was working out. Like Gail Worth. Feel the power. I mean, Gail Worth. Every time she walks in that store, she is electric. Sean Delaney. With him, it's like feel the freedom. He's like, man, he will point you in the direction and help you get where you want to go. You go to like Beth Ernst down at Doc's Harley Davidson. Hers is, feel the love. But what you got to do is you got to create the culture. We recently interviewed former Harley dealer Dangerous Dan Stern. And he ran House of Thunder. And I have to tell you, Dan Stern, man, I just dig this guy. He was the #1 Harley Davidson dealer in the country in terms of employee engagement. And one of the things that he did to help create culture is that every month he would spend one day working in each department. The owner would spend one day, 8 hours, 10 hours on the parts counter. Would spend one day writing up as the service advisor. He'd spend one day slinging metal on the showroom floor. And I just think that's a dynamite way of creating culture. So, Tony, let me ask you, what are you most excited about with the future of power sports?
Well, I'm excited that we have in the marine industry. Let's talk about really quick that over 50% of the buyers in 2021 were first-time buyers. I'm also excited that in the power sports industry, it shares a large amount of people that have never ever touched power sports. Period, and that was one of our biggest fears that had started back, sometime around 2010, 2012 is how are we going to connect with a new generation when the older generation that has typically been riding these units is dying off. Now, while we have evolved from motorcycle dealerships to power sports dealerships, it's exciting to see that millennials and Gen Z do want to participate. They're very excited about ATVs. They're very excited about UTVs. I'm excited to see the future of where the industry is going to grow. There was a article that I read yesterday of a tremendous prediction of global growth in power sports over the next 3 to 4 years. That came out yesterday, and it's a fascinating article. So while I do believe that the market is going to, like I said, reflex and go back to similar times, I do believe that we have made great inroads in clawing into demographics that we just weren't seeing, because I frankly believe that people were at home, going through this pandemic, and they had a ton of serotonin coursing through their veins, and they wanted to get out and they wanted to do different stuff, and they needed to feel good. And this was one of those things where they went out and they got those dopamine rushes, and they found it in power sports and RV, and they found it in marine. So I'm excited for the future of the power sports industry for sure.
Yeah, right on. Good. Hey, Gart, let me ask you this. If you had one saying or one idea that you could put on a billboard, just one, if you had one idea or one saying that you could put on a billboard, what would it be?
Well, I want to answer the future of the power sport business. Mark.
Oh, no, you got a different question.
All right, here it goes. Well, I would have to say our dealer principal that I work for had a sign behind his desk over the credenza. And it wasn't a billboard, but it was framed, and it said, "It is our responsibility to be successful under the conditions as we find them." Now that's profound and godlike. And you think about that. I don't have any inventory to sell. Look at the showroom floor, it's empty. It is our responsibility to be successful under conditions we find them. What about our pre-owned business? Are we building that? I know we're overpaying, but guess what? We can charge more, can't we? Whenever we had a Super Bowl Sunday and I didn't do the performance I had predicted, the dealer principal called me in and point to that sign. So the billboard that stuck with me is no excuses. Figure it out. You're smart, you're creative. You got where you are because of that. So figure it out. And the second thing is hang around people smarter than you. Hang around people that have a lot of positive, good energy, that got a great experiences that they're willing to share and you're willing to give to. And those people will propel you forward and help you be successful despite whatever conditions are unknown and ahead.
Yeah, right on. Excellent. Well done. And that's why people are at AIM. That they're hanging around people, smart people. They're getting, they're stop breathing their own exhaust. They're getting fresh air into their combustion chamber. All electrification aside. Hey, Pat, I'm going to surprise you again. What's one failure that you had that really sets you up for success? What's one failure that you had in your career that really sets you up for success?
I would say for me personally, the experience of going in and trying to micromanage everybody to death and having good people walk out the door on me because of that, that slap in the face, in my case, it took multiple slaps in the face, taught me that hiring and empowering proper management for any business other than the smallest is not only the most freeing step, but it's the most vital step to business success. You know, getting my hands out of everybody else's pie was a tough lesson to learn, but once learned, distributed management and collaborative strategizing with managers who you know and trust, who are qualified to do their job and who you hold accountable, is just critical to any kind of growth plan and even just standard success plan. So I would say the experience of being an idiot led to greater success in empowering people to do their jobs and get.
Yeah, right on. Yeah, I think we've all been there, right? Yeah, we've all been there. One of the things that I'd like to ask you about in terms of empowering people, I know we've talked about this before. Talk to us about open book management. What it is, why we need it, and how we should execute it.
Well, I would say so open book management, I would just lead off by, you know, in a classic definition is sharing a lot of financial data with employees. And it's not at all the right thing for most dealerships. For some, it fits the culture. For others, giving people information that they don't understand or know what to do with is just a recipe for disengagement and getting them ticked off about numbers they don't understand or can't control. Having said that, if you have true departmental management, that is department managers that have higher fire authority and are held accountable for the P&L, then you can't possibly expect them to do their job at the highest level unless you have some form of open book management, unless you're willing to share data. You know, and I don't mean that you as a dealer principal need to share every detail of your 13th month adjustments, but you do have to have a rational profit plan that's shared with the employees who have control over it. So I think from that perspective, if you have departmental management that's paid off of net profit, has hire and fire authority, and is responsible for that department's net profit, you got to share the data. You absolutely have to have the numbers, you know, and one of these two were saying, you know, long-term success means bringing dealership managers to 20 group meeting. That's sharing the data in a way that they understand. Now, if you go out and tell a technician who's making $15 an hour, they don't even understand why your labor rate's $140 an hour, right? So when you start talking about a net profit of hundreds of thousands of dollars, you've just made someone really unhappy and really suspicious about everything else in the business. So, you know, it's not appropriate to share data that's meaningless or not in context to people. It doesn't matter. But boy, everybody's got to know that what they're doing is valuable to the business. And so there's a role of data and financial sharing for every single role, every single job in the business. You know, finding that point is our job as owners and general managers.
Excellent. I appreciate that. Hey, Gart, let me ask you this. Other than your own, what book do you find yourself most recommending to others? Other than your own?
Well, it's probably out of circulation now, but Theodore Levitt's was very revolutionary in marketing imagination. And he cites the hamburger war where McDonald's and Burger King compete with each other. And he cites that the way Burger King differentiates from McDonald's to say, ooh, we broil, they fry. So when you think about Theodore Levitt's and that book and how profound and maybe dated it might be, it's like, how do you differentiate yourself? Because there's big time dealers that are coming in with multiple locations and huge resources. We're all aware of that. And there isn't a person in this room, it's in retail, that isn't saying, how is that going to impact me as a 1 or 2 store operation? and it will impact you.
Tony, we're going to play a game.
Love
I
these.
know. Here's the deal. I'm going to name a topic, and you are going to say the first word that comes to your mind.
Okay.
No expletives. Huh? Okay?
Yeah, that's tough.
All right, I know. That's why I'm making that parameter. Okay, here we go. I'm going to name a topic. You say the first thing that comes to your mind. New motorcycles.
Old margin.
Pre-owned motorcycles.
Find them.
Regulatory compliance.
Follow that.
Employees.
Teach them.
Digital retailing.
Paramount.
All right, here we go. Closing comments from our panel members. So here we go, Pat. We're going to start with you. Give me some closing comments that you would like to share with our group today. What would you like our participants to know?
I just think after 2 years like those we've just had, it's easy to put the machine in cruise control, and you can't get inventory, so you don't have the inventory problem right now. But my thinking about 2022 is don't drift into it. Be super deliberate. Go back and do a systems check. And our job as owners and general managers is to create urgency in an environment where there may not be any built into it. And so, my thought is go back, take a look at your sales department. Have you stopped doing the things that you used to do? And in 2019 and prior, you're still measuring the door swings, the closing ratios, the daily one-on-ones, all of that stuff. Is that still happening? Even though your sales department's been generating so much profitability, are you, we saw that graphic about the responses about the service department. What are you doing out there? Don't just let it go this year. Get out in the shop and get those metrics together. Think about the total structure of the dealership and the head count and all that stuff. And, prepare yourself for a great year while keeping an eye out for what might change in the marketplace. So
be deliberate. I love that, Pat. Thank you. Gart, closing comments.
Well, first of all, in closing, I want to thank everyone here who has attended. We were challenged as subject matter experts up here to make sure there were takeaways. We hope that you have had many good takeaways, or at least some starter thoughts for you to go back and make a difference. But I want to leave you with this. I heard recently, employees don't quit their jobs, they quit their managers. I remember Jason Day, our sales manager. Jason Day was a reformed alcoholic who took a very destructive compulsion and moved it into a constructive one. His desk was always clean. He was always ready for us when we brought a deal to him or we needed help or some coaching, counseling. But what I took away from this very, very critical mentor is he gave me not only direction, but the words. And don't ever underestimate, as you leave this forum, this show here, how important you are as a mentor. Because he would ask a series of questions to make sure, did we really engage? Do we really know about that customer? And if not, he'd send us back out. When he was convinced that the engagement was there, the process was done, he would tell us what to say. He would load our lips and say, here's what I want you to go back and tell the customer. Now, what did I just say? That's not what I just said. Here's what I want you to go back and tell the customer. What did I just say? Yeah, go do it. And guess what happened? It worked. And when it didn't work, he'd go out and tell that customer what he told us to tell. That is a true leader and a mentor. And eventually, when I moved up the ranks, I actually had Jason's seat there as he moved up too. I could hear a little Jason on my shoulder for the rest of my career and could still hear him after so many, many, many years. And he'd tell me how to work a deal. Do this, do that, get more cash down, move them off that unit. What a profound difference one person made in my life towards me doing high performance in that sales department.
Yeah, thank you, Gart. So be a difference maker. Okay, here we go. Tony, closing comments.
Well, I want to thank everybody for taking an hour and a half to spend listening to us blowhards up here talk through this. I also want to say thank you. I'm honored to be up here with these two gentlemen. I would say use trepidation in 2022. Don't operate out of fear, but operate out of knowledge. Micro adjustments happen in this market every week, which turn into macro adjustments every other week and every month. This market will reflex back into something that we are more familiar with. It may go down, it may continue up. Really have your nose to the grindstone and watch your numbers and see what's going on with your traffic logs, see what's going on with your profitability, see how backed up you are in service. Look at your metrics and understand the market coming, because when it comes, it's going to come and we're going to need to pivot quickly, and we're going to need to adjust into a new market that will be a new normal. And I would hate to leave people behind on the turn that simply think that they can sit back and just take deals that are coming in that are drop downs and can get away with cutting corners. So watch things closely.
Yeah, because night follows day, doesn't it? All right, you know, an insider recently confided in me. It's about to be kill or be killed for dealers. You know, it can't be. That can't be what happens. We have to stick together. And I'm not saying anything like collusion. Don't misconstrue my comments. But we've got to stick together. When I was a kid, one cold January day in a Sheraton outside of Reading, Pennsylvania, as a 22-year-old, I found myself at the Eastern Harley-Davidson Dealer Association meeting. And the contentious topic of the day was, should dealers charge one another for delivery when trading bikes? There was heated debate on both sides. And finally, the association president, Pap Schaefer said, enough. Now I'm going to tell you how it's going to be. We're dealers, and we stick together. We're not charging one another for delivery. If we can help one another out by trading a bike, that's what we do. Vi, that's just the cost of doing business, he said. You know, I really learned a lot, and that left an indelible impression on my 22-year-old mind. I think for us to be successful this year and in the future, dealers have to stick together. Our beef shouldn't be with the dealer across town. Our issue should be with any activities that take discretionary dollars and time away from power sports. It can't be kill or be killed, or what's going to die is us. I condone healthy competition. I don't support cutthroat, win-at-all-cost competition. Now, I'm saying we've got to come together if we're going to grow new riders, not destroy each other fighting over the ones that we have. This event, it seems to me, is all about coming together. You just watched 3 different 20 group moderators come together and share freely to help improve your business. Here at the show, we've got the MIC and the NPDA coming together to help improve your business. So whether we come together virtually or in real life, we've got to stick together for our future success. I want to thank our panelists. I want to thank our organizers. And most importantly, I want to thank you, our dealers. Now, go make this year legendary. See ya. That's it.